about 3 or 4 years ago, I snuck a tracker in your backpack.
You know what? Let me see if it's here. I did. I pulled it out just the
Oh,
other
you
day.
found it. Oh my God.
I took it out. I knew AirTags were good for something. Apple's biggest innovation is a stalker tag that they gave everybody in the last decade. So yeah, I'm glad to hear they're finally going to cancel those goggles. What a dumb thing. I know they're not actually canceling them, but maybe they can get around to being as cool as Zuck.
Founder and CEO of More Insights and Strategy, Patrick Moorhead.
6, 5.
CEO of the Futurum Group,
Daniel Newman.
6, 5.
Do we know what we're talking about, Moorhead?
We absolutely know what we're talking about.
So we did the full revamp of Pat Moorhead, and the entire introductory part of that video, he is thin, svelte, and muscular. But Fat Dan still exists. I look at that now and I'm like, holy crap, I was such a pig. Anyway, it's 279, man. It's funny, like you're dragging through these decades of pods now, and it's like 279, 278, it's like these numbers are really high, but it takes a long time. Like you think of the work it's taken. We started this thing in 2019?
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah.
And we've done this pretty consistently every week. Okay, we've done it pretty consistently every week for what? 5 years, 6 years, 6 years, and we're still only 279 freaking episodes in.
I know. Well, I mean, if you add the ones that we do with guests, there's a lot more. I can't even imagine how many we've done.
Yeah, that's crazy. But we roll. We're crushing it. You're crushing it. I'm doing my best. Hold myself together. But it's an exciting day for me. You know why? Because about 1 o'clock, I'm going to split out. I'm going to drive up to Waco, Texas. I'm going to go spend the weekend today and tomorrow with my daughter at her sorority dad's weekend up at Baylor. Going to go be good dad. I'm going to go do a little pretend to hit a golf ball because I haven't done much of that. And then I'm going to go and sit at a table with a bunch of people I probably don't want to talk to at some dinner. But then her and I are going to go to the game. We're going to wake up tomorrow morning at 5:30 a.m. We're going to hit the gym, and there's a 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. Baylor game. I'm going to the football game. I'm going to do this, dude. I'm going to do this right. It's good to be back. But before we jump into this show, we got a great docket this week. We always have a great docket. Even when there's nothing to talk about, you and I are great at finding things to talk about. And thanks to AI, there's really not been a time. But how are you doing? Have I seen you this week? Have I run into you? Have we seen each other?
Yeah, that was so weird. Daniel and I, we used to spend a whole lot more time together, particularly during, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago when we weren't able to travel and you were actually coming down to your office down here. But it was fun. Yesterday, I'm at this event at a hotel right next to my office, and I'm coming up the escalator and I see my bestie Daniel and had no idea we were going to be there. And we had a very similar run-in last week when we show up on the same plane. We're in the same city, and we didn't even plan that. I mean, Daniel, are we just, or is this the beginning of the breakup, Dan?
Yeah, I forgot to tell you to the exact precise moment that I would be within a certain proximity range, and your dandar went off, and you had to be near me. And so it drove a gravitational pull for you to come to an event. You didn't have a meeting with the CEO. It was really just about the fact that you sensed that I was near you and you needed to be near me. And so, but it was pretty funny to come down and run into each other.
I can't believe we don't have, are we really good friends that we don't have find friends? Are we connected on
I
location?
don't even think I have that on. I'm really paranoid about, being tracked that closely.
Yeah.
But, it's only because I'm sometimes in these bunkers making really awesome deals that I can't tell anybody about. But man, I've got some really cool brewing.
You don't even have to turn it on. I about 3 or 4 years ago, I snuck a tracker in your backpack.
You know what? Let me see if it's here. I did. I pulled it out just the other
You
day.
found it. Oh my God.
I took it out. I knew AirTags were good for something. Apple's biggest innovation is a stalker tag that they gave everybody in the last decade. So yeah, I'm glad to hear they're finally going to cancel those goggles. What a dumb thing. I know they're not actually canceling them, but maybe they can get around to being as cool as Zuck. All right, man. Listen, we've got a great show coming up. In surprise news, there were some AI deals made this week. There's some potential foundry deals. Intel stock is up 50% since DJT, President DJT, went in. He's making the U.S. some money. The U.S. is making money. OpenAI can't miss a week. Microsoft digging into commercial, going bigger, making investments, hiring more people, or maybe hiring less people, but promoting some people. Secretary Lutnick, is he asking too much of U.S. chip manufacturing? Is he slowing down deals in the Middle East? I don't know. There's all this going on, and we got a couple other things we might get to depending on how time permits. And you know the show, Pat. We break down the decode. We go into the flip. We simulate a debate, which typically you win, and I put my tail between my legs and I crawl out of here, sadly, into my next meeting. And then we go into the markets, and that's where I like to shine. Anyway, I'm a stonk guy, as you may have texted me at some point this week. God, you love stonks. I do love stonks a lot. More fun with that, Pat.
I mean, if I have to like fall over one of your investment stonks, your posts, the rocket ship to the moon market. I don't even know what market means, and I'm a freaking boomer,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just me being all bold and making predictions, calling what I think is going to happen.
Market.
Like put it on your books.
Okay.
Hold it, bookmark it, and then come back to me, because all my haters, which I have accumulated a nice number at this point, when I'm actually wrong at some point in the future, come back and show me where I was wrong. I mean, this is like the best ever diary of my opinions. And like but what has happened over the last years, I've been right a lot. And so I'm asking people to mark those too. Because I'd like them to do my victory laps. I got to stop doing my own, like let everyone else do our victory laps for us. But yeah, we got a lot going on. Hey, why don't we dig in, Pat? Because I do want to get through this docket, and there are a number of things that I think everybody out there is going to want to hear about. So let's go to the decode. Okay, so you and I speaking of markets and stonks, I think you tweeted something basically like not the last customer I would expect, but close to the last customer you'd expect. And here I am all bullish, basically saying they're going to use Intel because they have to, because Intel's been made like Joe Pesci in Goodfellas right at the end. Is it going to be a bloodbath, or is it going to be a heavenly partnership between AMD and Intel Foundry?
Yeah, so these two are bitter rivals. In fact, a lot of Intel's challenges, they were self-inflicted. But the other ones is you've got AMD that's just crushing it on execution in particular. And the company went from it not being able to execute with sus architectures to absolutely crushing it left and right and being the number two, a distant number two in the GPU market, but number two. So there's a lot of reasons, more reasons that AMD wouldn't do this, even if Intel actually had it. I mean, first of all, there's not an independent board there to dish out the number of packages or the number of wafers. Okay, so the thought of getting a rug pull out there, meaning Intel wants to reduce the amount of wafers or packages for AMD. That's a huge risk, particularly that literally every CPU, every x86 CPU that AMD sells is one that Intel is not selling. So a lot of reasons there, a lot of hatred. I mean, go back and look at the history. I was a customer of both Intel and AMD, and I worked at AMD. And there were a lot of really nasty things that went on between the two companies. So, and there's a lot of history that goes into that. Now, let me tell you where a lower risk deal could be. Okay, it could be on packaging, right, where there is a commitment for packaging. And the other is this idea of an I/O die. An I/O die is typically, it connects the chiplets, and heck, Global Foundries used to do the I/O die for AMD. Does not require leading edge technology, and I would say it's less strategic It doesn't need to be on bleeding edge, and that could make sense to me. I do think that AMD is going to have to make some sort of move somehow to show that it's doing more on U.S. soil aside from running more wafers through TSMC in Arizona. So, yeah, kind of all both sides out of my mouth it on this one, where, I think they would be one of the least likely, but if they do, here is where I would expect them to do it.
Yeah, my thesis remains the same. It has very little to do with what AMD wants to do, and it has everything to do with what's going to be expected with Intel now being basically a nationalized foundry for the United States of America. I do understand that the investment is not necessarily coming with those particular strings, but there's pressure through direct and then there's pressure through indirect channels. And the indirect channels here are pretty palpable. The US government did not make this investment in Intel to have it be a trailing, failing, or unutilized resource. The expectation, and we'll talk about this later with Secretary Lutnick, with President Donald Trump, is that the U.S. will return to some sort of manufacturing leadership. So this isn't an if thing for me, it's a when thing. And so I think when you hear that they're having a conversation, this could be a conversation about something they'll do together in 2029. I mean, this is not necessarily anything to do, and people, it's like their brains explode about the idea that it's like, oh, they're having a conversation, they're going to announce something tomorrow. It's like, look, for them to make these moves and to actually tape out for different foundries and plan to possibly use a multi-foundry strategy. I heard a CTO recently say companies love talking about the multi-supplier, multi-foundry approach, but very few want to do it. And the reason is the risk, the cost, the consistency. There's all kinds of reasons that they don't. But in the end, I think it's going to be policy driven. I don't think it's actually technologically driven. And I think policy is going to force, and this is going to put some strain on companies, because if Intel cannot execute and does not have a parity in their product, they're going to force good companies to build inferior products. Kind of like, when Apple was trying to put out two iPhones, one with an Intel chip and one with a Qualcomm chip, and it literally became like a meaningful deprecation to get the Intel version. You remember that period of time.
Sure.
We could end up in the same type of situation here, where there's going to be AMD chips at Intel and AMD chips coming from TSMC. The other thing, though, is I do think any of the smaller vendors to TSMC, the ones that have a small relative percentage of their yield, are thinking multi-foundry strategies, or have to be, because if you look at the demand around, like in NVIDIA, I don't know if TSMC can build capacity fast enough to support what we have as these multi-year forecasts. Every week, these deals, the amount of size. I mean, I think it was yesterday I shared that one of the ODMs for NVIDIA said that they have now visibility for demand through 2027. So 2 full years of sales forecast demand. And they literally can't stand up factories fast enough to assemble these servers. And so all of this is going to take time. So if Intel is going to have some capacity, I think some of these fabless companies are going to look to take that advantage of that capacity, because I think you've seen this before, Pat, but Apple, NVIDIA, and then like Qualcomm, and then it's like by size of how much capacity they're going to get. And so some of these ones that are a little smaller, and AMD's not small by any means, but it's a little smaller, have to figure out how do they make sure that they never get constrained, or they reduce the risk of being constrained. So those are my reasons I think it's going to happen. For all the obvious reasons that shouldn't happen, I also agree with those. I seriously doubt, Lisa Sue's like, oh my God, I can't wait to use Intel Foundry. I just think the pressure from the policy side is going to create demand, whether or not any of these fabless companies really want to partner with Intel Foundry. That's where I stand on it.
Yeah, you brought up a good topic too that I put out a snarky tweet on. Shocking. And that's this, oh my gosh, people are talking to other companies. Let me be very clear. Every single one of TSMC's largest customers has talked with Intel Foundry. Okay. And not because, there's all this pressure, but that's just the way that real business works. And this is the way that this happens. Everybody wants to know what potential suppliers are doing, and they can course correct and make changes. So this whole idea, I mean, And also, you've got investment bankers and people leaking information because they want something to become true. And, maybe those longs on a certain stock will leak something, or people will leak something on something they want to short so they can make more money. So just be very cautious out there, about, everything you're reading in the out there.
The pumps and the dumps. I mean, listen, there's a lot of pumping, there's a lot of dumping. The longs and the shorts will go to a lot of lengths to create the kind of news that moves the markets, right? But the bottom line, Pat, is this could be something 5 or 10 years in the future. I mean, that is the kind of thinking these companies have to be doing in a cycle like this. So, anyway, speaking of a cycle like this, Meta has been busy, and by the way, so is CoreWeave. Meta got announced a $14 billion infrastructure deal with Meta. And then, of course, the week before, I'm pretty sure OpenAI announced a $6 billion deal with CoreWeave. So there's, first of all, this capacity play. In my stonk tweeting, you'll see me talk a lot about a couple of names that I've gotten to really like, as these like Cypher mining, and all these mining and companies are turning into HPC companies, and all of their capacity is being absorbed. So CoreWeave is the same, except CoreWeave doesn't actually have the energy or the real estate. So CoreWeave is they're obviously building out the data center capacity for GPUs, the bare metal. But clearly, all these hyperscalers are going to use these third parties and basically take advantage of any and all capacity they can build for them. So that's super interesting, because Meta's also talked about their 1.1 gigawatt deal in was it in New Orleans, not New Orleans, in Louisiana, down there in the swamp. They're investing hugely. Although it's been kind of funny, Pat, about Meta. Like, Meta went through this period where they were hiring people for $100 million. They were building a super intelligence lab. And over the last few weeks, whether it's been, the Sora announcements, the OpenAI investments, the NVIDIA deals, like, it feels like Meta's gone a little quiet, on some of their, what's going on with Llama, how competitive are their models. So they're spending, they're building, they're expanding. The one thing I always like about Meta is they have a real business with real profits that actually uses the technology. And that's what I keep going back to, is that is their strength. Their kind of open source super intelligence lab is a little more nascent to me. Like, how is it doing? You've spent a couple $1 billion hiring these researchers, and by the way, not everything's going to happen in a week. Like, there could be amazing things going on that we don't know about that are going to come out and completely break our brains and break the market. So just keep that in mind. And then, just another note is, I think we should debate this later. We'll probably have to debate something about this later. But Meta, despite adding capacity with CoreWeave, which is likely meaning they're more NVIDIA, using more NVIDIA, because that's kind of what CoreWeave does. Is they bought a startup, Rivos, to expand their efforts. There are 4 generations in with MTIA. They've got a lot of ambitions to build their own. We've heard about like 6,000 rack scale systems at their Broadcom partner infrastructure. But every one of these hyperscalers, Pat, is making more and more investments to do some of their own. I mean, so let me ask you this, in terms of the semi parks, I know you love this even more than I do. Like, they need to be, making these investments. What do you think about this Rivos deal?
Yeah, so I think we're gonna.
Yeah, don't debate me in advance, because we'll hit this on the flip. But just curious what you think of this
First
deal.
of all, just real quickly, the reason that all of these hyperscalers are going with people like CoreWeave is they have the space, they've got the power, and they've got the GPUs. I don't understand the CoreWeave long-term business model. It doesn't seem very sticky to me. But if they can't make money on this deal, something like this with Meta, they're never going to make money, and they're just going to wither away and die. But I think that's okay for people like Meta who may not need them in the future, or for that matter, Azure. Yeah, and buying chip startup Rivos. I did some digging a little bit on this one with some of my sources, and it's not that necessarily that Meta loves this architecture of Rivos that claims to build a GPU-like architecture that's CUDA compatible. I almost vomit in my mouth when I hear CUDA compatible. It's just nearly impossible for anything to be CUDA compatible. If it were that easy, AMD would do that. I do think the architecture is interesting, though. It uses a bunch of RISC-V cores that essentially, it's not actually a GPU, but it has hardened ASICs plus the CPU, right? Which seems to be one of the winning architectures for an accelerator. But what I dug up is this is an acquihire. It's not about the it's to accelerate MTIA, and they needed more horsepower to be able to do that. And Meta is just rocking on custom silicon. You just hear less about it, but they're on their fourth generation of MTIA. They're having challenges with their bigger MTIA, and to do real training. First chip was streaming. Second chip, I believe, was suggestion engines. And Meta is just one big suggestion engine. Suggests ads, suggests friends, and it suggests content. So, acquihire.
Recommenders, buddy. I recommend the peptides. I recommend following at
Which
Patrick
one?
Moorhead on Twitter.
Yes.
I recommend watching Patrick's weekly What's New in Tech videos.
Thanks, Busty.
I'm here for you.
Honestly, you haven't watched a single one, and that's okay.
No, I do. Whatever the recommender thinks I want to see them, I don't. But I actually get all of them. In every channel, by the way. Every recommender believes, Pat, I want to watch your videos. Because I'm a super fan.
You sure that's not paid video?
Are you doing paid? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm doing paid.
I mean, you got to do a little paid. I mean, I don't know. Some people, some low IQ people in the past have thought that somehow paid is a version of cheating.
Very low IQ.
Very,
it's called promotion.
Low
Look it up.
IQ. Next time a company promotes themselves at a Super Bowl, I'll be like, that's not real. It's not real.
No,
Doesn't count.
Not good.
Doesn't count. Only organic.
Yep.
By the way, you got a pretty big organic reach.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter and LinkedIn, even though as much as I despise LinkedIn, I mean, you're the same. What's so funny, though, I can get a banger on like 100, 200,000 people on LinkedIn, and I just have no idea where it's coming from. And first thing that pops in my head is, somebody must have posted on a SharePoint site. But, biggest concentration for a post might be 10% from a certain company. It debunks that. And then some of the slop I'll put on X, right? I'll put the most thoughtful post, and we'll get like 12 people who will watch it.
Yeah, it's brutal. Like I said, I've given up on being thoughtful on X. It is a pure posting site, and once you own that, you'll get way better results.
Your follower count is impressive. I mean, they like the slop, they like the to the moon, they like the rocket ship.
Yeah.
They love that.
You know what the one thing is, because I actually do have, outside of the companies we advise and I don't play with as an investor, they love to know what you're doing. So I've started to share a lot more of the stuff that I don't have any conflicts and that I can invest in and that I am investing in. And that's the stuff that everyone gets excited about, because it's like, it's one thing that you have an opinion on a company. It's another thing when you're actually putting your money where your mouth is. And so anyway, that and, some of the random NVIDIA posting, because I just, I continue to be the guy that just doesn't believe any of the nonsense, the China stuff, the all that. Like, I might be wrong. I mean, there is a chance I will be wrong, but so far it's not been the case. And so we'll see where I land. By the way, everybody out there, if you are checking out GTC, Pat's going to be the super host this year of GTC DC, sitting down with Mr. Gerstner. Very cool. Someone I got to meet him at GTC last year. Very, very cool. I actually rode a little bus over to the convention center, and it was just him and me. So,
my gosh.
Yeah, I felt, I was pretty starstruck, meet smart people. Like I told you, man, it's all about who you hang out with. It's all about, you can't fly with the eagles when you're hanging with the turkeys. So I just try to get myself near smart people and then hope it's like osmosis. All right, man, let's move on. Let's hit the next topic. OpenAI, Pat. Have you created a video yet with yourself high-fiving me?
Buddy, I really am. I love new tech. I love the demos, but here has been the meme of the new video generators. It goes kind of like this. This is going to change everything. Okay. oh my gosh. And then, 3 weeks later, people forget about it. And then nobody really ends up using it, maybe except for professionals or meme generators, Bigfoot videos on YouTube. Okay. I'm pretty sure, I see some of the slop that is getting recommended to me on YouTube. And, I listen, it's not because I'm a boomer. Actually, I'm not. I'm Gen X. But when I see something that I know is not real and it's being passed off as real, I reject that. But looking forward, right, it puts the potentially puts the strain on companies like I would say, Adobe for small creators, right, where they're trying to do videos. The bar for me and my workflow is going to be where it can replace you and I in this podcast. We throw the topics in there. It pulls in history, our snarkasm, our belief systems, and then you and I can just go in and we'll be sitting in the hot tub, and our video will be generating.
Yeah, these kind of every week something new pops up. Um, Sora, I will have some fun with it. We will probably try to create some 6.5, Sora clips to start sporting with people. I do think, like I said, there's kind of like everything was kind of what I said in the AMD Intel thing. There's like two time horizons that people need to be able to parse through that there's both. Like the near term, this is a gizmo. It's a gadget. It's a toy. It's nothing. It's something to make GIFs with. The future of GIFs are like Sora enabled with us in them. In the longer term, the fact that you could insert yourself into a video, write a script, and create something pretty cool, and it uses and trains on all like that could end up being pretty awesome. Also, by the way, it could be super nefarious. Like there's so many things. Like I was thinking about that. I was talking to the Wall Street Journal about this yesterday, and I'm like, there's two great opportunities. It's like one is like you can basically absolutely create this amazing thing. And the other thing is like people can create this absolutely very realistic looking stuff that puts us in, compromising situations, like the ultimate blackmail tool. But then in the future, the person that's going to have that stuff happen to them, Pat, is going to end up being like, that's not real. That was AI. And then the people that actually really do it are going to be like, no, that was AI, even though that was like a real video of them. Like we are going to have such a problem. Like right now, you can kind of watch these and be like, well, why are you growing a third arm after you give the high five? You see another arm popping out the back. But like at some point, they will be good and it will be right. And it will be really hard to discern between what is real and what is not. And that, I don't know, this might be the bit of Gen Xer in me, but like it does scare me a little bit. Like I am a little nervous about how this could be used inappropriately, nefariously, negatively, bad actors, freaking, used to create really looking images that can open face, unlock face on your phone. I mean, I don't
Well,
know.
what I've been pondering is, will people put a premium on human content that they know is human? Kind of like an RDA, recommended daily allowance type of thing. And I think, like, how people will pay extra for handcrafted goods and handcrafted, custom homes and stuff like that. I think there will be a market for human content. And, Daniel, we've had the debate on even our own industry, right? Which I think, we agree on some points, we disagree on other points. But the human nature, there still be value, and I think a premium on doing things that AI can't do very well.
Agree with that. So my read on the whole situation is ultimately everything is changing. Everything will be efficient, but I do think some human things. The question is it like going to be combustion engine cars where it becomes exotic, unique, and premium, but very small part of the market in the longer term? Or does it become truly a premium with a real market segment, niche, and scale and growth? Meaning where actually the demand curve starts to swing back to actually wanting more realistic human content. And also, by the way, I think there's a difference between like this kind of stuff where you're watching in like a video. Like, are you going to want an AI actress? Like, do you see the thing about the AI actress that got its own agent in Hollywood now? That's like that versus like, you know, like if you use prompts all the time, I do too. Like the stuff it's writing is getting to the point where it actually really sounds like me. So it's like, is there a premium to have me actually sit and type out a note? Or is it okay if it's me via an AI that allows me to do 5,000 times more volume? I don't know. We're going to find out pretty soon, though, Pat. I mean, you and I, if you see us holding signs, we'll pundit for food or whatever because it all ends really abruptly. You know which side of that argument ended up being correct. Um, Anyways, meanwhile, all right, let's hit a couple more things. Microsoft doubles down, triples down. I'm going to move a little faster because I know we've been dragging a bit. But Microsoft appoints Judson Althoff as their commercial CEO, which to me is like, hey, we all know this consumer stuff, the OpenAI, ChatGPT, all these tools have taken off in AI, but everybody's asking when do we get more value from AI in the business? It's taking time. A small percentage of data are hitting, but you've seen big Azure growth. But again, are these applications consumer? Are these applications for business? I think the enterprise opportunity, the consumption, the implementation, the utilization, the productivity, the efficiency that needs to go into business from AI is going to be the next big proving ground. And so Judson's been one of the top executives for a long time, but he's basically going to take the reins, Pat. He's going to pull together and really put that emphasis. And I mean, Microsoft's run to all-time highs. Clearly, the market's buying its story. Azure's had great growth. My read is, look, it's right now it's about telling the right story. And the right story is Microsoft wants to be on the right side of this enterprise software transformation, of this software industrial complex transition that we're in. And it looks like putting someone to make sure they eat, drink, sleep, and breathe this particular item is a good decision. And I wouldn't be surprised to start seeing more of this from some of the other hyperscalers, some of the other software companies, because this is going to be a double down on getting value from AI if we want to keep this bull market running in a bullish direction.
Yeah, Daniel, conversation you and I had, I think a week ago was, I can't believe how many things are going on at the same time. Even at a high level, it's hard to keep track of what's going on and what's important. I mean, probably the biggest example of this, Microsoft does the biggest data center announcement they've ever done and the most powerful in the entire industry in Wisconsin. And the same day, you've got NVIDIA and Intel announcement that happens. And, the Microsoft Wisconsin data center announcement gets drowned out. And I think what we're seeing here is these big companies recognize that things are moving so quickly, and there are large players they're competing with, but also smaller players they're competing with, and they need to work faster, right? And to me, putting a CEO in charge of, putting Judson as CEO of the commercial market and products and operations, and while engineering doesn't report into him, I am told that he gets final decision making on products. That should move better, and also better understanding what your customers want and what they're willing to pay money for. I think that will speed up. And then you've got Satya that will spend less time doing that and more time invested into the bare technology, kind of like a founder, and also the gigantic CapEx investments that the company is making. So this is a classic divide and conquer. And Satya is still the CEO of the company, but he has a co-CEO that works for him, but is empowered to make the decision. The buck stops with Judson on this. And I like what I see.
Yeah, I think that's a good assessment. So let's hit one more item, Pat. The policy front, just really quickly. The 50% of chips locally thing. I mean, is that just like a moonshot at this point?
Listen, 20% in 2030 looks to be a moonshot, particularly when you look at the growth in AI. And I doubt, we will hit that. And that was the original CHIPS Act. So, 50% by X time frame, yeah, it is a moonshot. In fact, not a moonshot, it's a Jupiter shot, right? We're going to put, land people on the horrible planet that's Jupiter that kills everything that sits on top of it, and takes a decade to get there. So, yeah, but I do see, this is strictly from a business and policy standpoint. I think the administration has tried all these different ways to get more investment in the United States. And I think they've finally woken up to the danger that having this concentration inside of Taiwan is. And it's not just China invades Taiwan and cuts us off from everything. It's the any negotiation that Taiwan has with us, they have the advantage in any type of negotiation, even if they remain a sovereign country. The winners here, I mean, Intel has to be a winner if this is real, okay? And this to me looks like a continued negotiation, but it looks like the administration has more clarity around what they really need, which is 50%.
Got it. So, Pat, there's a bunch of other things, so much in a week, but you and I actually have to do real work a little bit today. I know all you wish we could just sit around and pontificate all day. But I want to do a flip with you. I want to hit this XPU GPU thing. I mean, look, it was like Broadcom's going to do chips for OpenAI, and then NVIDIA comes in with 100 billion. And now people are like, well, maybe they won't do the chips. I mean, can they with that much investment from NVIDIA? I mean, technically, yeah, no, maybe. And now MTIA, and they're buying companies to advance, but they're also working more with CoreWeave. And of course, they want to get faster capacity. So should these hyperscalers just wave the white flag and go all in on merchant infrastructure? Let's go to the flip. Pat, you are the go. So the question here is, I mean, is it time to wave the? I think you're saying yes. Wave the white flag and just go all in on merchant. Go all in NVIDIA, all in AMD. Scrap your Broadcom projects. Scrap your custom Marvell. It's NVIDIA time, baby.
Yes. So for this simulated debate here, they should go all in on merchant because it's all about time to market. Okay, it's not about cost savings. It's about time to market right now. And I think Jensen put some good Jensen math out there that talked about, and I think this can apply to AMD when they get their rack scale solution out there as well. You're actually better off going with a merchant GPU than even getting an ASIC for free. So the amount of tokens per dollar and the time it's going to take to get that out. And sure, GPUs will consume more power in aggregate, but it gets back to how many tokens how much revenue can you derive from that? The other thing is that, look at the, I'll say, put CUDA and ROCm out there. The amount of developers who are developing for those compared to the interfaces that go into all of the XPUs, it dwarfs any single company's software bench. So the developer friction is real, and every one of those alpha site interviews, that's 100% what they're saying. The other thing is the hit or miss view of it. I would say that even for one of the best XPUs out there probably has a 50% hit rate on whether it's hitting or not. And a lot of that has to do with this, vicious cycle of AI and the models and, oh my gosh, okay, LLMs, we're there. And then we get into multi-turn reasoning, and then we get into pre-training and the things that DeepSeek brought to the table. So literally every ASIC dollar could fund more capacity with GPUs, better networks, or even new data centers out there, because each one of these XPU designs is between 300 and 500 million out there, and let's just say you buy into my 50% hit rate, there might be a time in the future when the model vacillation and the curve dies down, kind of like ASICs XPUs were really good at machine doing object recognition, doing one thing. There might be a time, but the time is not now. My final comment is that I could see a situation where Intel could continue their Gaudi 3 as a merchant XPU that you could develop on. Signal 65 has done a lot of good testing on that shows how much more efficient an XPU is than even a GPU. So let's say you've got AMD, you've got Intel, maybe you've got Grok as an option. Maybe you have Cerebrus. Maybe you have Gaudi 4 that Intel could create. So yeah, it's time to stop with the custom stuff here, folks.
All right. That's the jam, Pat. But I disagree. I think it's a terrible idea to discontinue it. We have a $583 billion TAM by the end of 2029 that's still going to be about 60 to 70% GPU and merchant off the shelf. But that other 30% or so, $100+ billion is going to be the largest hyperscalers deciding to control their own fate and wanting to make sure that they optimize their supply chains. They never have capacity issues related to being able to get something from merchant. And of course, being able to harden a piece of silicon to be used for the very specific needs that they have to optimize within their infrastructure. So look, if you don't want to make as much money and you don't want to be as profitable and you don't want to guarantee your future, then sure, go all in on merchant. But if you actually want to say, hey, we still want to be worth a few $1 trillion down the line, and yes, it's great that NVIDIA is going to be worth $5 trillion very soon, but we want to control our fate. We've got businesses to run, we've got customers to serve, and we've got profits to make in order to return value to our shareholders. You're probably going to go down the XPU route. And look, everything is as bad as it'll ever be today. All these things are going to get better. AI is actually going to make chip making better. It's going to optimize these designs. It's going to shorten cycles. You got these companies that are actually helping to do this, to make this happen faster. The Broadcoms, the ARMs, the Synopsyses. These companies are helping build and visualize and design and optimize silicon so that they can be taped out faster and brought to market more quickly with better results. The software work has to be done, but heck, everybody thinks Huawei can do it. So you don't think Microsoft can do it? You don't think that, Meta can do it? Of course they can. It's just a matter of time. The ASICs we have today are the worst they will ever be. They will continue to get better with every generation. The Google TPU has absolutely proven that you can make a hardened piece of silicon that can be pretty darn flexible and can do pretty amazing things. Why I'm so bullish on Google is they got that done first. They've done it the best. Amazon is following. This is my biggest complaint about Microsoft. It's got to get this done sooner than later. And by the way, NVIDIA is going to get more than their fair share with close to $400 billion of AI infrastructure revenue by the end of the decade. So I think we can have our cake and eat it too. But these hyperscalers need to control their own fate. And don't cry in your soup bowls, NVIDIA bowls, because you guys are going to be just fine as well. So onward. Build your custom chips. Give Pat and I something to talk about for the long haul. I think you and I both agree it's a mix. Yes, in the end?
Yeah. And when the sine wave slows down, it's going to make it a lot easier because you're not going to have to crank out a new XPU every year, right? And, the design tools are getting better. But one of the biggest expenses is trying to get a mask set inside of TSMC bleeding edge here, and the industry is investing a ton to disconnect themselves or decrease the blast radius of CUDA. So
look, it's a win with, but they all want to have some margin optimization in the future. They're going to have to. All right, Pat, just a few minutes here left on the show. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Let's just hit a couple of things in bulls and bears. It's a light week, Pat, because first of all, we're kind of through the earnings cycle, but just a few more weeks and we'll be back. So that's great. We can do that again. But look, there's only really one piece of bulls and bears news this week, and you can call it 1.5. But like our government shut down this week. Okay, Democrats refused to pass a spending bill. that would keep a budget that would allow the government to remain at least partially funded, if not entirely funded. Which, by the way, my daughter told me one of her friends was ROTC at Baylor, got a letter this week that her tuition is no longer being paid. So this is hit hard and it's hit fast. A real instance of where this shutdown, I guess, potentially is impacting the market and impacting people in out there. Because like you and I don't think we see a lot. Like, I don't know, stoplights are still on. We're not really, because a lot of the things that we think about, the services we get, these are municipal and state services. That's the whole argument of the Trump administration in many ways, is that we have too much federal government. But things like the BLS, the jobs and labor, we didn't get a jobs number today. Not that they're ever right, but what do you think about that?
I mean, I didn't trust the numbers anyways. So, I mean, I don't trust anything at this point coming out of the BLS. But the closest thing we have is ADP, right? With private payrolls that said we had 32,000 jobs in September, but hiring plans have hit a multi-year low. And, if I follow your X platform, you are talking a lot about that. And what I'm trying to figure out is if we're deporting so many people, and I really don't think we're laying off. I mean, the tech companies are laying off a lot of people, but what is actually going on here? The only direct line that I can find to real employment, not government employment, is interest rates. And I thought that was an interesting thing that showed a clear line between the ebbing and flowing of interest rates and non-governmental jobs that were out here. So I think we need to. We're paying the price for all the deficit spending during the dark days, and we can debate and argue whether that was the right thing to do, but I'd rather not. But we pumped so much money in that was just backed by debt, and we're still churning through that money. And then even though it doesn't show it in the data, Daniel, the small businesses have to be getting hit by tariffs. I just don't believe that. I don't believe those numbers, because I look at small businesses and how they buy. Like, do they have the ability to just turn around and, oh, I was buying from China before, I'm going to buy from Vietnam, right? I'm going to stand up a supplier, right? I'm a grocery store and I buy, I've got 5,000 SKUs inside of the store. And I think this, is having an effect as well.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it short and sweet, Pat. Look, I have a really hard time believing any of the numbers. It's our own, confirmation and recency bias that we like to agree with the numbers that serve the purpose that we want, and we disagree with the ones that don't, or will proclaim they're not legitimate or real. Look, I've been overwhelmingly the one that says AI is meaningfully going to impact jobs. Maybe not immediately in terms of where it's actually, but companies are changing spending and making decisions in how they're investing into the future and hiring because of it. So I continue to believe that jobs are the real risk. The reason we need to bring down interest is we need to stimulate businesses to keep investing, because that investment is what's going to keep the economy turning. We're going to have to figure out, and it's uncomfortable, but we're going to have a real conversation about jobs and about AI at some point. Like, that whole rhetoric of every transformation brings more jobs, maybe that's true for AI in the longer term, but the short term and how fast this has happened has not given humans the ability to keep up with kind of designing the roles that we will have into the future. Yeah. And so I think it's a long and short tail. And again, it's the people's inability to see both short-term timing and long-term timing. No, AI hasn't replaced your job yet today. It might do 50% or 60%, but not complete. And that's why they haven't fully replaced things. But trust me, in the boardrooms, they're looking at things and how it can be done. And they're making forward-looking investments based on that thing. In terms of the overall shutdown, Pat, this government, just the whole thing is such a disaster. It's not a right or left thing. It's a spend as much as we can. Both parties are the same. We're only option, and I think President Trump was honest about it, is we have to grow faster than we inflate. And so the bottom line is all policy goes that way. That's why I tend to be so bullish, and you can fight it, and you can be, like they say, bears or shorts sound smart and bulls make money. The bottom line here is that the fight is going to be, they're going to keep pouring, keep spending, keep growing, because that's the only option we have. If it actually goes the other way, it's not a little bit of a problem. It's catastrophic. Sorry,
Yeah.
beep that out. It is catastrophic. Our economy will implode if we stop growing. So real things to worry about. I think this gets resolved because I think the Democrats realize if they don't resolve it, they're going to get crushed in the next election because for the first time, the shutdown is being blamed on them. Historically, it's been Republicans that are sort of the ones that have done this kind of tactic, and they've taken the heat for it. But right now, it's that not enough Democrats are crossing the aisle to keep the government funded, and real people are losing jobs right now. And I agree with you about small business. I don't think we know how to document the inflation impacts on these smaller companies. I do think that's probably where inflation is hurting the economy. It's not hurting it the way that all of the panicans said it would hurt it. Overall, we're still growing. GDP's outperformed most expectations as a whole. But again, how much do we trust that? I don't know. Pat, I got to run. I got a call that started 2 minutes ago. But I want to thank everybody out there. Great Friday. Bring your peptides. Bring the guns, not the bad kind of guns. These kinds of guns.
Bad
Every
guns.
week.
Oh, God.
What?
Bad guns. Come on.
Oh, sorry. Let me do that again. Not the ones that hurt. Nah, never mind. These can hurt people too. All right, Pat, thanks everybody for tuning in. Be part of our community here at the 6-5. We love you all. We'll see you all very soon. Bye-bye.